Live from New York City, it's the Gary Null Show. And now, your host, Gary Null.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Null. Nice to have you with us today. We're going to start our program today with a study from Georgia State University. It's about psyllium and the fiber in psyllium and how it protects against colitis by activating bile acid sensors. So psyllium is important. All fibers are important because they help make us regular. They help us to take the food that we chewed into what is called bolus, and then insalivate it with these enzymes that come from under the tongue. If you open your mouth and pull back your tongue, you'll see two little tiny holes, and from that comes your saliva. In that saliva are amylase and tylan. These are enzymes that break down the complex carbohydrates into simpler carbohydrates, facilitating easier and better digestion in the stomach. Now, if you're eating in a calm state and you're taking your time and you're masticating, chewing your food thoroughly, then that creates a really perfect medium to go from the stomach in a little flap opens up, pyloric sphincter, and then it goes in the top of the intestine where it's deacidified from all that hydrochloric acid. Then your liver kicks in, your spleen kicks in, your bile kicks in. All these things start to facilitate better digestion, assimilation, absorption. They're all part of it. So by the time the food gets into the most important part where it's actually absorbed, it should be the consistency of like a potato soup, but without all the chunky potatoes, pureed. And that means that if you've digested your food properly, you're going to get maximum assimilation and utilization. Otherwise, if we eat the way most people eat, very fast, taking a cold beverage down, frequently one with acid in it, like a cola, that causes all kinds of problems in the stomach. If you overeat, then you swell the stomach out. Yeah, the stomach can move a bit, but when it's really full, the stomach in its own protection begins to dump food only partially digested into the intestine. That's not good. And therefore, you get a lot of food going through the intestine, not even absorbable. So there's a medium in which you maximize the digestion. All right? And that means you're maximizing the nutrients getting into your body. And that's what we want. But then you also want a good, healthy movement out of the body of the dead bacteria, the dead cells, and the non-digestible fibers. And that's what makes up our movement. The cleaner the intestine, the healthier you're going to be. Then if you eat some really good probiotic foods, if you have some beet juice in there, and you have some low sodium sauerkraut in there, or cabbage juice, or just probiotics, you're colonizing good bacteria, good immune system. It's works that simple. And therefore good elimination. Remember, the reason that we have stress and strain when we try to have a bowel movement is because we have too much food that is high in fat, high in animal proteins, and too little in fiber. And we don't have enough moisture in the system. So it becomes really congealed in there. That means that the material we want out of the body, the garbage, it's in contact with the sensitive mucous membranes in our intestine. That leads to inflammation. That can lead to all forms of itises and illnesses in the intestine. And this is common in the United States. Constipation and hemorrhoids are common. And yet we tell people what to buy to soothe the pain of a hemorrhoid, but we don't tell them how to stop that engorged blood into the cells that perforate out. Simple. So according to Georgia State University, by having psyllium fiber, it helps. It activates the bile acid nuclear receptor, a mechanism that was previously unrecognized. And so the takeaway message, and this was published in the journal Cellular Molecular Gastroenterology and Hepatology, is just have more semi-soluble fibers in the diet. All right? And that can help him prohibit or inhibit inflammation which can lead to colitis, for example, among other conditions. We just are not eating enough quality fiber. All right? So simple advice, easy to do, nothing that difficult about that. Next up, and this is researchers link a supplement to reduce biomarkers of Alzheimer's in the brain, University of Delaware. So according to the study, for the first time, a research University of Delaware College of Health Science, in collaboration with the team at the National Institute on Aging, has determined that the naturally occurring, that's the key, dietary supplement known as NR, that stands for nicotinamide riboside, can enter the brain. We didn't think it did. Now we know it does. The discovery was made by Christopher Martins, assistant professor of kinesiology and applied physiology and director of the Delaware Center for Cognitive Aging Research. And that's important. The finding is significant because it supports the idea that this NR supplement, upon reaching the brain, can alter the metabolism of relevant biological pathways involved in neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's. Their work was recently published in the Journal of Aging Cell. And upon consumption, when you consume that, it readily converted into nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, or NAD+. Now, I'm sure you've heard me talk many times on this program about NAD. In fact, NAD was one of the supplements that was selected by Dr. Scott Vogel of the Life Extension group to help people in the anti-aging study. And we took about 200 milligrams a day. Anyhow, it's very critical to cellular repair and repair of damaged DNA. So the NAD, let's just make it simple. NAD, we won't give it its biological name, is gradually lost as we get older or develop chronic diseases. And loss of NAD is linked to obesity and other negative lifestyle habits like smoking. And because more NAD is needed to counteract these negative consequences, it's more likely to be depleted when you are not having a healthy lifestyle. So under normal conditions, you lose it. But when you're having an unhealthy diet, you're overweight, you're not eating right, you're drinking alcohol, then you speed it up. And that is one of the single most important nutrients to slow down the aging process, to add years onto your life. And what's important is that when they measured NAD directly in tiny particles called extracellular vesicles that originated from neurons and ended up in the blood, these extracellular vessels can provide cutting-edge blood-based biomarkers for brain disorders and serve as a kind of a liquid biopsy of neurons. So it's just important. Now, tell you something else is important. Last evening, I had an opportunity for the first time to see the full printout of what was done at a major university for our anti-aging group. And here's what, first of all, it's extremely technical. Even Richard Gale, who spent over a decade working in genetic engineering science at a major biotech industry, couldn't decipher it all. It was all in code, and it was just reams of information. Dozens and dozens went through it, and we're getting them to give us the code to decipher it because they have their own coding system. But the good news is, and this is really good news, in my case, and I'll just use myself as an example, I was almost 10 years younger at the epigenetic level than at the chronological level. So my age is one thing, but my biological age is much lower. Now that I see how well that worked, I'm now personally tailoring the next protocol that we're going to do in our next study. We're changing a lot of things. It'll be study number 6. I'm not going to mention any more about it now, but NAD was a very important part of that. It was only one of about 14 different supplements that we took, but a lot of other things add up to repairing your damaged DNA. That's the key. Now, let's just say that you smoked, you drank when you were in college, and maybe did other drugs. And then after college, maybe you weren't as active, you were more sedentary. And so all this creates damage to the DNA. So let's just say that at some point you start to become more conscious of health. You start making better selections in your food, taking your time eating, getting more sleep possibly, and going out for power walks, bike rides. That's all good. That does not do anything to reverse the aging that occurred when you were not eating and living a healthy lifestyle. So that's a separate way that we now have to open that door. So slowing down the aging process, yes. Reversing the damage done, yes, we can do that. Adding years on to our life, this was the study that proved that. Now, I've already submitted for publication. It's already gone through 10 scientists who've reviewed it, and everyone's given a thumb up, said it's a really important study. In fact, one person, Bill Floon, said it's possibly one of the most important scientific studies ever. But we have two more parts that we have to publish. And one is this very complex genetic discovery done at the university. Now, they're experts in it, so they're going to do it. I'll let you know the results, the complete results, and we will publish those results in the very near future. But the bottom line is that if we want to prevent Alzheimer's, we can do that. If we want to help Alzheimer's, now we can prove that we can do that as well. So all these doors are opening. And this is orthodox science, all right? With complementary, integrative lifestyle changes, and lots of them. No longer one magic pill will change everything. No, it won't. But a lot of changes will. But then how do you get people who are not used to change anything? Just as an aside, Luann is burying her mother today, who died at, I think she was about 93 or 94. And she says to me, I spoke to her yesterday, she said, this ends 15 years of helping my mom, but because the protocols she was on, and I created those protocols for her as a friend, she was completely cognizant. She had full cognition. As she was in conversation, she was articulate. But here's what's important. She had 15 additional years to be with her mom. And when she took her mom out of New York, relocated her down to Texas with her and Peter, her partner, and then started the protocols, in no time at all, within a year, she started seeing all these wonderful changes, getting her energy back, her cognition back, her memory back, her sense of humor, her tartness. You know, one of these real good New Yorkers, man, they tell you what they think, even if you don't want to hear it. But that's part of the humor of it as well. Now, I have 4 other friends who are all about the same age. These are all women, and they're in their 50s or 60s. And from Luann, I believe, is the longest caregiver at 15 years. But one is 7 years, one's 11 years, and all of them have had their own health adversely affected. The difference is Luann did it all and got phenomenal results that doctors couldn't believe. And where you have someone who's literally at death's door who now has a life. The others did parts. And this is the message. And I'm going to have Luann on to discuss this next week. You can't lose your own life helping others. You still must maintain balance in your own life at all levels, because it's very stressful. It's extremely stressful. It takes a toll on you. I know when I was taking care of my father from terminal cancer, my older brother from inoperable lung cancer, where they opened up his chest and closed it back up. and send him into hospice care. And I got him down here and reverse that terminal cancer. But it's an enormous amount of energy and time, but you love the people and you have a moral commitment. Yes, you help them, whatever it takes. But the key is doing it all. And a lot of people don't do it all in their own life. So what you're not willing to do in your own life, the changes you're not willing to embrace in your own life, then how are you going to suddenly do it in someone else's life? So the key is as many things as you have to change in order to be happy and healthy. That means the more you're going to be able to do in a more holistic, integrative way for your loved ones. And unfortunately, some of the loved ones that my friends took care of, they're gone. I mean, their minds are gone. They didn't do enough, and they didn't do it with the completeness that it takes. So I know a lot of you, probably half the people watching right now, at some point in your life, you're going to be responsible for changing your parents' diapers. You're going to be there when they're incoherent or they're talking, just nonsensically. You're going to have to be there when they're screaming during the middle of the night. And these are painful situations to be in. But just remember, they were there for you, changing your diapers. And when you were screaming inconsolably, and all the things that you needed done, cleaning up after you, they did. So it's part of life. Now, can we prevent that? The answer is yes. A very interesting study about getting good night's sleep could add years to your life. This is from Beth Israel and Harvard Medical School. So it's simple. Getting good sleep can play a role in supporting your heart and overall health, and maybe even how long you live, according to new research presented at the American College of Cardiology at their annual scientific session. The study found that young people who have more beneficial sleep habits are incrementally less likely to die early. Moreover, the data suggests that 8% of deaths from any cause could be attributed to poor sleep patterns. We saw a clear dose-response relationship, is what they're saying. So the more beneficial factors someone has in terms of having higher quality sleep and naps are important too, and then meditation on top of that, well, then you put a lot on your side to live a longer life and have less all-cause cardiovascular death. That's according to the internal medicine physician at Beth Israel and at Harvard Medical School. So we've already told you how to have a good night's sleep. Let's just make sure that you stick to it. All right? What time you should go to sleep. Now, of course, there are going to be circumstances where we're out, we're partying, we're doing something that keeps us from going to bed on time. But okay, you can get away with that occasionally, not a problem. But on a regular basis, make sure that you get the sleep you need so you wake up refreshed, your immune system re-stimulated, rebuilt, a lot of the damage done. In fact, in one study where they compared individuals who had 0 to 1 favorable sleep factor to those who had 5 favorable sleep factor, 30% less likely to die of any reason, 21% less likely to die from cardiovascular disease, 19% less likely to die from cancer, and 40% less likely to die from causes other than heart disease or cancer. So we're talking about big differences. So what do they mean by one factor, one favorable element? Well, let's just say that you don't get stressed before you go to sleep. You deal with your stress by writing it out on a piece of paper and then putting it aside, because then your brain says, okay, I'm going to deal with that tomorrow. By maybe taking some melatonin, 1 milligram, 2, 3, and not eating within 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed. So you're turning down your metabolism. That's important. By maybe having some magnesium or theanine so that you can help the musculature in the body relax. By doing maybe 5 minutes of mindful meditation before you go into bed. That's important too. All of these contribute. Turning off the lights so it's dark in the room, using earplugs if you have noise outside so it's silent. Each one of these contributes, and turning off all, literally unplugging all of your computers and cell phones, turning it all off so your body's not getting bombarded with electromagnetic pulses. You can't see them, you can't even feel them, but they're there, and that can disrupt the pineal gland and the body's release of melatonin, which you need. Next up, the benefits of olive oil for health and well-being, University of Seville. And this is just one more study about the polyphenols. And they're well recognized now by science. There are hundreds of studies on this, if not more. But little attention has been paid to oleic acid, which represents about 80% of its composition of olive oil. And that is why a group of professors from the Faculty of Pharmacy and Medicine at the University of Seville produced a study on its main contributions to health. Now, this fatty acid you find in all olive oil is the main constituent of olive oil and is responsible for many health-promoting properties. Oleic, O-L-E-I-C, acid is produced by the diet and synthesis in the body itself. It's therefore the most abundant monounsaturated fatty acid in the human diet. Oleic acid is the principal of fatty acid in the human circulatory system. In the brain, it's a major component of the membrane phospholipids and abounds in the neuron myelin sheath. A significant decreased level of oleic has been observed in the brains of patients with Alzheimer's, all right, and multiple sclerosis. And like all fatty acids, oleic acid's main function is that of an energy molecule and a component of cell membranes. And one of its most characteristic effects is its antioxidant properties, since it can directly regulate both the synthesis and activity of antioxidant enzymes. And another beneficial property is its hippocampal effect. It inhibits the expression of proteins associated with cholesterol transport, reducing cholesterol absorption, and thus preventing atherosclerosis in your arteries. It has anti-cancer properties. It inhibits the effects of overexpression of oncogenes and their effects on programmed cell death. Moreover, oleic acid is generally considered an anti-inflammatory molecule. So you have all these wonderful things. One more reason not to use sunflower oil, all the oil you get in the restaurants that they cook from and you get in the supermarket. This clear oil, sunflower, canola, they are all bad for you. Now use when it's dark green, that's a good oil. That's your hormones being helped also. Olive oil. Also hormone therapy for gender dysphoria, and I'm not saying pro or con, that's your business, but here's what you should know. Here's what they're not telling you. That hormone therapy has now been shown by Mercy Medical Center in Pennsylvania to raise your cardiovascular risk. That means it enhances your capacity to have a heart attack or die from a stroke. All right? And this was presented at the American College of Cardiology's annual scientific session, together with the World Congress of Cardiology. So I just think, before you take any medication, do your own homework so you know what the risks are. Then if you choose to take the risk, your body, your choice. All right? But we're not getting all the science, even though people are making choices without being fully informed for the other things I have to do. So remember, you can go to GaryNull.com any day and 24/7 and look at all the information that's there for you to benefit from. Also, you can go to PRN.Live and listen to some of the finest broadcasters in the world. And that at least will give you some very insightful insights. Now, I mentioned yesterday that I would give you today some reasons to take black seed cumin oil and at least have it in your refrigerator. This is about Nigella, N-I-G-E-L-L-A, sativa, S-A-T-I-V-A, black seed. And it is really powerful. If you just looked at the peer-reviewed literature, you'll find remarkable benefits. And it's used in biomedical research, and it's continued to flourish Dozens and dozens of articles are at the National Library of Medicine. So what are some of the things that we know it can do? I'm going to go through these very quickly. 1, it prevents radiation damage. 2, it protects against the damage from heart attack. Yes, it has a specific way of protecting against damage associated with experimental heart attacks. It prevents morphine dependence toxicity. It prevents kidney damage associated with diabetes. It prevents post-surgical adhesions. It prevents Alzheimer's disease associated neurotoxicity. It suppresses breast cancer growth. It exhibits anti-psoriasis properties. It prevents brain pathology associated with Parkinson's disease. It kills highly aggressive glioblastoma brain cancer cells where nothing else will. It kills leukemia cells. It suppresses liver cancer growth. It prevents diabetic pathologies. It suppresses cervical cancer cell growth. It prevents lead-induced brain damage. It kills oral cancer cells. Nothing else does this. It is quite simply the single most important thing you should have in your refrigerator. If you don't need it, great. If you do, use it. Any flu, any cold, any virus, any bacterial infections, use it. All right? We're going to take a break. You've got a lot of information to work from now. I'm Gary Knoll. We'll be back in a moment. Please stay with us.
Are you tired of closed-minded programming? Well, look no further than PRN.Live, the home for progressive voices.